That was the first time this season that UConn has actually looked like UConn. Welcome back to another episode of the Top Dogs podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. My name is Rob Doster, and we have a win to talk about. UConn goes on the road to Austin and beats Texas 76-65, the second straight win they've had against a team from the state of Texas, capping off a monstrous week for the UConn Huskies. Absolutely monstrous. You know, it looked like this was a group that could have been dead in the water coming back from the Maui Invitational, losing three in a row, losing the way that they lost to Dayton in the seventh place game of that event, to respond by landing a comeback win against the Baylor program that is a top 15 kind of a team, and doing it while not having your best player on the floor, Alex Karaban, who was out with a concussion for that game. We talked about that on Thursday morning. Then you follow it up with a Sunday afternoon win at Texas on the road against a team that has a future top 10 pick on it and a whole bunch of talent, jumping out to a 22-6 lead. They were up 42-20 at one point late in the first half. Early second half, Texas hit 7 straight threes to kind of get this thing close and make it respectable. I think they cut it to 9 at one point, but there really was no game pressure on UConn in the second half as that thing kind of played out. So I think it's fair to say, at least in my mind, the first half of that game was the best basketball that we've seen UConn play all season long. It's not really all that close to me. It started on the offensive end of the floor. I think that there was a real concerted effort for UConn to get to the basket and put the ball on the floor and get to the rim, and run some ball screen sets and you know, find people slipping to the basket, find Sampson rolling to the rim, find Terrace Reed rolling to the bucket. They got Alex Karaban on a couple of slips. Liam McNeely put his head down and put the ball on the floor and drew some fouls in the lane, and it got them going a little bit offensively. One of the things this team's been dealing with a little bit is slow starts, and I think getting to the foul line, getting some layups, it got them going a little bit offensively. And then the threes kind of opened up, and I think that at one point they hit 6 of their first 9 threes, and I think that's just kind of what got it going a little bit. I'm not really quite sure what Texas was trying to do. Well, I know what they were trying to do defensively. I'm not quite sure why they were doing it that way. Texas wanted to switch everything on the perimeter, and for the most part, it ended up being pretty much a mess. I thought that they were pretty unimpressive on that end. Their ball screen defense was terrible. Sampson and Terrace Reed combined for 24 points on 12 of 15 shooting in just 31 combined minutes, and it was almost laughable how easy it was for those guys to get a free lane running to the rim and a bunch of space in the paint to be able to get a chance to finish with a dunk at the basket. Basically, all that happened was Texas was switching everything 1 through 5, and all that would happen is the 5-man would end up just slipping to the rim, and Hassan Diarra would hit him with these nice little pocket passes. I think Sampson had 3 dunks off of that. Terrace Reed had a couple of layups at the rim out of that. They weren't helping on shooter or off of shooters at all on either corner, so it would be 5 out, and it was just space, and it was like they were running 5-on-0 offense at times there, especially in the first half. And it wasn't just the ball screens either. There was one specific play that I remember late in the first half where UConn ran a bunch of offense, and they got to the point where it was a pin down and solo ball was coming off of Alex Karaban, who didn't even really set the screen. He was there and then just slipped it right away. And Hassan found him for a little pocket pass and a dunk at the bucket. So it was really impressive how they were able to kind of run it. And you know, honestly, I think that really does stem from a couple things. One, they were able to be patient running their offense, and they ran their offense from where they wanted to run their offense from. What I mean by that is the Texas ball pressure did not really bother UConn. They were able to kind of get to where they wanted to get to run their offense. I thought Diarra was really, really impressive, being able to kind of handle the physicality from the Texas backcourt. They ran their stuff, you know, outside of a 3-minute stretch midway through the first half and a couple of possessions late in the game. I thought that UConn was really strong with the ball and cut really, really well and really, really strong. And it sounds basic, but for a team that runs offense that is as intricate and sets that are as elaborate as what UConn does, you need to be able to move where you want to move for the offense to work the way that it needs to be able to work. You got to get to the spots that you want to get to. You got to be able to move on the path that you want to be able to move on. And you have to be strong when you're doing it all, right? You can't just let somebody bump you off the line that you want to get to. You can't let someone bump you off your cuts, which is what a lot of teams are going to try to do. And I thought the starting five plus Terrace were really, really good at this last night. Aiden's not quite there. Jaden's not quite there. Jalen, I believe, will get there, but there's still a little bit of a learning curve with him. It was not his best game last night. And that leads me to a bigger concern, but, it's something I'm going to touch on a little bit later. So I do want to say that this was easily Alex Karaban's best game of the season. 21 points, 11 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. He was 6 for 14 from the floor, 3 of 5 from 3. And the reason he was so effective, especially offensively, was because the offense worked. The system worked. The sets worked. He is incredible as a cog in UConn's offense, right? He is so good when it comes to being able to read what he needs to do off of a screen, when it comes to being able to come off this pin down and curl into a three, right? When it comes to slipping a screen and being able to get a dunk at the bucket, when it comes to being able to know when he can get to the offensive rebound and offensive glass and get a putback. He is so good at this stuff. When UConn's running their sets, he's a top 5 player in America, point blank period. But he's not an ISO guy. He's not someone that's going to create on his own. He's not someone where when something breaks down, you give the ball to him and you're going to get a good shot out of it. Like, that's just not who he is. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. He's an incredibly effective basketball player that's going to make like $50 million in his career in the NBA because of the things that he is capable of doing. But he's not, he's not Trey Johnson. That's not who he is. That's not who he's going to be. And if you want him to try to be Trey Johnson and kind of be that isolation guy, it's just not going to work. That's not who he is. It's not his game. Now, part of this was the defense, right? And I do want to make a couple points here on UConn's defense, because I think that they were better. But I think it's also important to say that Texas doesn't run shit, okay? They don't have a point guard. They had 8 assists on the night. They didn't have an assist in the first 19 minutes of the game. Like, they are ISO heavy with big wings. Arthur Kaluma, Trey Johnson, Tremont Mark. And the thing about UConn is, if you're just going to try to like put them on an island, right, and not really run anything and just kind of take turns and try to square them up and beat them, they have guys that are good enough to be able to make that difficult for you, right? Alex Karaban is probably not the greatest defender in the world, but if you want to leave him on an island and let him go one-on-one with Arthur Kaluma, I'm going to back him to make Arthur Kaluma have to make a tough shot. And if you have Arthur Kaluma taking tough shots, like turnaround 14-footers, I'll live with that all day, every single day. That's what you want if you're our defense, right? Sometimes those are going to go in. For the most part, they're probably not, and they are low efficient shots when it comes to what they're getting. Liam McNeely, he can do fine that way. I thought Hassan Diarra did about as well as you can against Trey Johnson, considering the fact that he is a 6'1" point guard, and Trey Johnson is a 6'6" wing, right? You made him take tough shots. Some of them went in. You kind of live with the results, right? I thought that was as good as you can ask for, considering that there is no Steph Castle, there's no Andre Jackson. Like, these are the guys you got. You don't have a 6'6" shut off the water defender. And I think that they were good enough on that end in those situations to make life miserable for Texas last night. Now, what I will say is that UConn's issues defensively are when they kind of get put into rotation, right? When they have to chase a closeout, when they have to there's action on either side of the floor, and then all of a sudden you get into a DHO or into a ball screen and you got defenses moving, and that's where they can have a little bit of an issue. When you have to get into rotations, when the ball goes to both sides of the floor, they got to figure out what they're doing from help. There were no rotations on Sunday. The ball screen stuff that Texas was running was not that complicated, right? Sampson and Terrace were going to be able to handle most of it. That is not going to be the case against Gonzaga at all. The Zags run really, really, really good stuff. I got a preview coming later this week with Dan Dickow, who played point guard at Gonzaga and does our Gonzaga podcast. And that's going to be the real test of who this UConn team is and how good this UConn team is. They were better. They're better than the team that they showed in Maui, right? They're not a lose by 18 to Dayton team. They're better than that. They're probably not as good as being up by 22 in the first half on the road against a Texas team that has a really good chance of getting to the tournament. Are they is this a top 2 team in the Big East, right? Is this a team that can push Marquette in the Big East? Are they Final Four good again? Are they like get to the tournament and hopefully win a game good? Like we're going to find out a lot more about just where UConn kind of stacks up nationally on Saturday, because what Gonzaga does well can kind of, it can kind of exploit some of the issues and some of the question marks that we have with this UConn team. So we'll see how that all plays out. Obviously, that game is getting played in Madison Square Garden Saturday night, 8 o'clock on national television. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show. Now that the college basketball season is in full swing, you need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rhythm app. Spelled RITHMM, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against the spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rhythm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in the Rhythm's metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rhythm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download at the link in the description. Back to Samson Johnson and Terrace Reed for just a minute. The fouls, man. Like, Reed's second was unacceptable. What are you doing? Samson already had 2. There's 8 minutes left in the first half, and you're going to go and reach 30 feet away from the rim with 9 minutes left in the half. Like, what are you doing, Terrace? That can't happen, man. Like, those are the kind of sloppy mistakes that UConn hasn't been making the last 2 seasons. And I'm seeing a little bit more of it this year. And I know that holding this group to that same level of expectation is probably unfair, but you got to be smarter than that. And it didn't really hurt UConn last night for a couple of different reasons, but those are the ones that can't happen, because there's going to be enough situations where, you're put in the island, you're asked to guard a drop coverage, you're asked to try to challenge shots. Like, playing 5 in this system there's going to inherently be situations that forces you to kind of be in a spot where you can commit a foul, right? And it's hard enough to avoid fouling in those situations and not getting into foul trouble when you don't have a cheapie just by reaching 30 feet away from the basket. So I'm sure that one will get cleaned up. I'm sure that he was cussed out quite a bit at some point as a result of that. And that one can't happen anymore. Sampson's issues defensively. Like, I want to talk about this for a second. I do think that the foul problems that he has are a little bit tied to who he is as a player. And what I mean by that is that he is skinny, he's athletic as hell, he's a shot blocker, and he can kind of so he can get moved off his spots, right? He's not someone that's going to sit there and hold his position on the block. If you try to back him down, you're probably going to be able to, right? He is not Adama. He's not Terrace Reed. He's like 6'11 and 230 pounds and skinny and lanky and high center of gravity. He's going to try to elevate to block a lot of shots. Now, he's not strong enough to kind of hold that position. He's not strong enough to kind of hold that verticality. And if you can kind of get into his body a little bit, you're going to make it look like he is committing fouls, right? He's going to be leaning on you. You're going to be jumping into him. It's just, that's kind of where he gets a lot of his fouls from. And it's kind of inherent into who he is as a player and what his body type is. He commits too many, but I think a guy like him is always going to be a little bit foul prone because of the way that he plays. I think Terrace should be better. In terms better than Sampson, I mean, in terms of not getting into foul trouble because he can hold his position a little bit better. He's just got to, stop reaching 30 feet away from the basket. But what I will say is that both of them, especially against Texas and a little bit against Baylor, looked like they were more comfortable and better in the situations where they had to guard ball screens, right? And I think that's going to be the big key is making sure that you are crisp enough defensively where you're able to make things more difficult for the opposing team to get where they want to go. But I do think that, like, if there's an Achilles heel for this UConn team, a spot where it can all blow up this year it's the 5 spot, man. Like, if you're going to sit here and tell me that they have to win 6 straight games in a knockout tournament to win a national championship, and there's going to be none of those 6 games is going to result in like a opening 10 minutes where both Terrace Reed and Samson Johnson get 2 fouls, like, they're going to, at some point it's going to happen. Like, I just, if UConn ends up losing in the tournament somewhere, I think it's going to be a result of those guys getting into foul trouble and UConn being in a bad spot defensively as a result. I am glad that Yusuf Sangare got some extended run against real competition tonight. He had 4 fouls, but he had a steal, he had a block. He also committed a turnover, got a nice rebound. It was pretty electric as a cameo. And frankly, I think that there are worse insurance policies that you could have if you are the UConn Huskies, right? He is there as a break in case of emergency kind of a situation, right? Like, if you can come in and you know that if Sampson and Terrace both get 2 fouls in the first 10 minutes and Yusuf is going to come out there for 10 minutes and use up his fouls and be big and get in the way, and he's probably not going to score much, maybe get a couple of rebounds here or there, block a shot, hopefully not get exposed defensively. Like, there's worse situations that you can be in for a guy that is going to be asked to play like 10 minutes every 3rd game, every 4th game, something like that. So I thought he was fine, right? I thought it was actually kind of fun. It would have been a lot more stressful if this was a tie game instead of a 20-point game when he came in, but it is what it is. I do think that there is a question, though, for this bench. Like, do they have enough depth? They have guys that have played. They have guys that see minutes. But is there anyone that you truly trust? Like, is there a game-changing, other than Terrace Reed, because of the way that kind of works, is there a game-changing talent on this bench? Is there someone that you could bring in when things are kind of getting ugly where you know that they're going to be able to step in and have an impact? Karaban played 39 minutes last night. Liam McNeely and Hassan Diarra both played 35. Solo played 33. Aiden Mahaney, Jalen Stewart, Jaden Ross combined for 19 minutes between the 3 of them on Sunday night. They had 3 total points between the 3 of them on Sunday night. That 3-minute stretch that I mentioned in the first half where UConn struggled like getting into their offensive sets, it's when all 3 of those guys were on the floor together. Like, that's not ideal. Now, some of that is really a matchup thing. And when UConn was rolling, I think Dan was just going to kind of trust his starters. And when Texas was making that comeback in the second half, like, obviously he's going to want to leave the guys in that he has the most faith in. But I do think that big picture, you need more out of him. Something like what Aiden did against Baylor. Something like what Jalen Stewart did in that first half against Memphis, right? We're still waiting for the Jaden Ross breakout. Like, you could see the potential there. I think that he will get there eventually. But I think you do need more out of those 3 guys, at least one of them a night. All right, well, that's all I really have to say here. We're going to get another pod later in the week previewing the game against Gonzaga. That'll be fun. Dan Dickon knows the Zags as well as anybody in college basketball. But before we get out of here, I am going to drop in the segment from Sunday night's episode of After Dark. with Terrence Oglesby, with John Martin, and with Tyler Hansbrough, breaking down what they saw from UConn a little bit, just so you can get another perspective, and it's not just me sitting here staring into a camera and talking for 25 minutes 2 times a week. So let's get to that. Let's get to that segment. But before we do, please rate, review, subscribe to the podcast. All of that engagement stuff, it really does help. So if you don't mind throwing me a like, throwing me a rating, throwing me a review, throwing me a follow somewhere, really would appreciate it. See you guys on Thursday.
All right. What's the old saying? Rumors of Dan Hurley's demise may have been greatly exaggerated or premature, because don't look now. What is this? Two out of 3 ranked wins. You beat Baylor. Well, I guess Texas wasn't ranked, but that's a good team. That's obviously a good team, and it's on the road. So it's a pseudo-ranked win. I'm going to call it a pseudo-ranked win, all right, damn it. But that was really never even in doubt, T.O., as UConn gets Karaban back, and they go into Austin, and they get this win in very comfortable fashion, 76-65, led by Alex Karaban. As we sort of see this season progress and we can put Maui behind us, is this UConn team going to be in the mix for a third straight by the end of this season?
I think they're very much a second weekend possibility there. I think getting all the way to the national championship game and winning it is possible. I don't know that it's probable. I do like what they have. Donovan Klingen's not walking through those doors. I feel like Terrace Reed's still very good. Alex Karaban was great in the first half today, and I thought what changes things for them is when they decide to defend, because so far this year, outside of these last 2 games, the defense has been kind of here and there. Last 2 games has been excellent. They shouldn't have gone to Maui. They should have gone to Texas for vacation, because then Hurley would have been a lot happier.
Tyler, what do you make of this UConn team? I mean, now that they're, like we said, trying to put that week behind them.
I'm not worried about UConn. I think that Hurley, I don't know what in the heck happened to him out in Hawaii, 3 straight to unranked teams. But I will say Karaban, I like him. Samson Johnson, I'm a big fan of him. But also Terrace Reed is a guy who can provide you with some scoring down low. And I really feel like Dan Hurley does a really good job of, using his bigs in different ways and put them in scoring position. You look at Klingen. You look at the big that they had. I can't remember the guy from the championship run.
Sonogo.
Sonogo. I mean, Sonogo and Reed. I mean, Reed's no Sonogo, but kind of similar styles. I mean, he can get you
good
down
point.
low, good hands, get you rebounds, and I feel like he's one of those guys. And the McNeely kid is a talented freshman. Could they contend for a third? It's possible. I mean, I wouldn't bet on it, but I wouldn't be, floored if they didn't make it to the Final Four. Once you get to the Final Four, you can have a chance at a title again. And obviously, I think that you can never underestimate experience, good quality coaching. Hurley knows what he's doing. He's been there, and he'll know how to get his team ready. And, I love the sets that they run. And this is a very disciplined team, just like every other Hurley team. They run sets that really make the defense work, and they have guys that are athletic and big, and they have rim protectors. The Johnson kid is a rim threat, and he will protect and control the paint with his athleticism and length. And I'm a big fan of that, and I think that wins you ball games in the tournament, especially when you can't score, and I think that's a great asset.
Huge opportunity for them on Saturday, obviously, with Gonzaga. T.O., you look like you had a thought.
No, I think also, everybody mentions Karaban. I feel like everybody by default has to mention Liam McNeely because he was a highly ranked kid and he shoots a pretty ball. Like against Dayton, he was nothing. The guy that I have been really impressed with, and a lot of it is because I didn't see it coming. Solo ball. Whenever I saw him play in high school, I was like, man, big athlete, super long arms, capable of doing anything on the floor. But sometimes these muscle-bound guys struggle to shoot the ball. And his shot was okay, but it wasn't something to really write home about. That dude is filling it the hell up. And he's spotlighting at the point guard. The man's shooting almost 46% from three, and it's not on like 10 attempts, or 15, 20 attempts. The dude's getting rocks up, and he's knocking down shots. He has really stepped forward. It's like he had to wait and learn behind Tristan Newton and learn behind Cam Spencer, and then he's come in and he's really taken advantage of his opportunity. Like, kid is talented, and he kind of gives them another threat on the perimeter, but you look around, Hassan Diarra, 4 points, I think 11 assists today, or 10 assists. Like, they have guys who are so willing to buy into their role, and a lot of that's credit to coaching. Can they win a national championship? They can. Do I think they will? I think they're a second weekend team, but I do think they're very talented and they're very freaking tough.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out, because one of the things that I just sort of noticed watching them that week in Maui, and it's understandable because you're talking about 2 straight off seasons of complete reload for the most part, right? Losing 30-40% of your production, and you're really having to start over this year. You could see, like, as the shot creation becomes a little bit more developed and roles start to be defined and refined, I can see the vision, man. I'm not like betting them for national champion or anything like that, Tyler, but you could just see a world where these guys understand way more in February. And what we talk about Duke, right? I think it's kind of the same thing with this UConn team. They may not be as young, but in terms of minutes played, they kind of are. So you could see a world in, February, March where this does look a whole lot different. And it does look like, one of the best teams in college basketball. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So anyway,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No,
I got one point to go along with what you guys are both saying. And you in particular, John, I loved your point about like still kind of learning what they are and where their roles are. There was a pretty cool point. Schulman and Billis were talking. They're like, every time, UConn gets in a jam towards the end of the clock, they find Karaban. Well, that is true. However, a guy like Liam McNeely, who played at Montverde Academy, he's played with a lot of really, really good players. But a couple of those like easy shots for Karaban towards the end came as a result of Liam McNeely making a hard cut to the rim and taking 2 defenders with him. And then Karaban ends up with wide open threes. So understanding you can impact the game doing different things. So you look at a guy like Terrence Reed, transfers from Michigan. He's asked to do a little bit different, not totally different, but a little bit. You look at Liam McNeely, who's this super freshman. He's learning how to impact the game and doing different things. Solo ball this year, doing some different things. So while I think the upside is still there because you have some of these younger players, a lot of sophomores playing, like some of these other guys that have been hurt lately, like they're still trying to find different ways to be effective and different ways to impact the basketball game. And that's what you ended up seeing today and against Baylor.
Yep.